Many American veterans remember very well the first moment they stepped foot on the shores of Vietnam. But for me, the memory is still a little hazy. I kept thinking there's been thousands of guys who did this before, and they got to go home. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to go home. I'm David E. Clark. I arrived in Da Nang in 1968 as a 19-year-old combat engineer. Da Nang is now my home.
So I'm standing right now at Ushi's and David Clark's house in Da Nang City. Nearly 50 years after the war, our guest on Talk Vietnam, David Clark, has called Vietnam his home. And according to him, Vietnam is the most beautiful and peaceful place in the world. So let's join me to say hi to him. Hi, David.
Xin chào Lynn.
How are you?
Tôi rất khỏe, come on. Chào mừng đến na Ushi và David.
Thank you. May I come in?
Please do come in.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David, for welcoming us in your cozy home in Da Nang. And how are you today?
Tôi rất khỏe. I am very fine.
So I want to go back a little bit to the past. You arrived in Vietnam as a combat engineer in 1968.
Yes.
So what made you decide to sign up?
Well, I was a young man. I get in a little trouble, not a lot of trouble, but I get in a little trouble. Mm-hmm. And so I go live with my grandparents. And my grandparents are very good to me, but I just feel a burden on them. Mm-hmm. So when I'm 17, I can join the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps just so I can not be a burden on them anymore. But they were very good to me.
So tell me a little bit about your time in the Marine Corps and how did it affect you?
Many men get drafted. You know, they have to go into the military. Mm-hmm. You understand? Okay.
Right.
So I joined. Well, some men, when they join or when they get drafted, they think they go to the Army. But no, they put them in the Marines.
Okay.
And they not happy. I was a good Marine. I squared away. You know, I always dress nice. I always look good. I always try to be good Marine.
Okay.
Because I have to make it. I can't go back home.
Right. Where in Vietnam were you stationed?
In Da Nang. I was with the 1st Marine Division. Mm-hmm. Our battalion headquarters, our battalion base was at New Hong Son at Marble Mountain. Yes. And that's where I keep my stuff at. I'm not there much. I'm usually out in the field. Mm. When I was here as a young Marine, I have to carry a weapon all the time. I leave, I have to have a weapon or I go to jail. Mm. So, and sometimes I'm afraid. You know, I want to go home. Mm. So my feeling is, if I put the M16 in the face, a man, woman, or child, they fear me. Okay. And if they fear me, my chances go home better.
Right. Your chance of surviving.
My chance of surviving better. Yeah. I only worry about me go home. That's all I want to do.
Right. So what did you see during that time?
I just saw a lot of things that I just, it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know, it's not good.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to talk about it?
You know, I say a lot. When I'm here from 68 to 69 as a young Marine, mm-hmm. I'm a very small part of the problem. Today, I am here as Veterans for Peace, mm-hmm. and I'm a very small part of solution. You know, I come here as a young man to die for my country, and I'm very grateful I did not. But one of the greatest things that have happened to me is I get to die in Vietnam.
And you chose to do that.
But it's because I choose to
Yeah.
die in Vietnam.
Yeah. Why so?
I don't know. When I go to the United States, the Vietnam War haunt me every day and every night. I have nightmares, flashbacks. But when I'm in Vietnam, I look around. The American War over 45 years ago. Vietnam at peace. Vietnam at peace. I find peace in Vietnam. I not worry about the American-Vietnam War. I not worry about the American War in Vietnam. I just know the people are at peace.
In Da Nang City, people often talk about an odd old couple who sometimes stop children riding bicycles and pull them over. The couple insists on putting reflectors on the children's bikes and replacing any damaged rear lights. They are David Clark and his wife, Nguyễn Thị Thanh Hương, Ushi. All this started when David almost crashed into 3 children on bicycles because he could not see them when driving to Hue City late at night. Since then, David and his wife decided to take action, even if small, to prevent unfortunate accidents involving children riding bicycles without reflectors at night. The couple persists every day in putting free reflectors on every bike, one by one. That brings them joy because they can help the people around them.
So how long did you serve in Vietnam?
13 months. 13 months. July 1968 to August of 1969.
Okay, so you went back home in 1969.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So what happened when you went home then?
well, we very excited. I remember 180 Marines, we on the plane. We first land in the U.S. in LAX, in Los Angeles. And we all go to a bar very early in the morning. So then in a little bit I go to near my gate, where my plane take off. And there's a little bar there. So I go into the little bar, I order a drink, and there's a man there, I'm 20 years old, another man there maybe 30 years old, and the other man in a business suit, suit tie. I'm in my uniform. All I have is my uniform.
Yeah.
You can tell I just come back from Vietnam, very brown from the sun, have some medals.
Yeah.
So I talked to the man, but then he looked at me and he very serious. And he say, "You just come back from Vietnam?" I say, "Yes, I just come back. I go home." He said, and he looked at me and he very serious. He say, "How many children did you kill?"
Wow.
And I just, I feel, wow,
Yeah.
I'm not welcome in my own country. And I not have any civilian clothes. I only have military uniform. But I think if I have civilian clothes, I take my uniform off. I wear civilian clothes home. I don't want them to know I'm Marine, come home from Vietnam. And even then, I still have maybe 8 months left. I get out of the Marine Corps in 1970. And even when I get out of the Marine Corps and I go work, I'm a telephone man. I climb telephone poles and put in telephones.
Yeah.
And even then, you not say, "I'm Vietnam veteran." Nobody, you don't talk about it. Maybe sometime you meet another man that in Vietnam, and maybe you two talk a little bit, but never talk about it.
Yeah.
Just never talk about it. And I say this many times, from 1969 when I get home from Vietnam to year 2001, maybe 3 people say thank you for your service.
So that was 30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
3 people.
Right.
And it make me today still feel sad. What do you thank me for? Going and killing innocent Vietnamese people? You want to thank me for that? And the same, I understand, I talk to other veterans, the same Iraqi veteran feel the same way. Afghanistan veteran feel the same way. You know, you talk to World War II veteran in the U.S., he in World War II. You say, thank you for your service. He will say, you're welcome. I'm glad I did it. You know? You say thank you to Vietnam veteran for his service, and say, what you thank me for? Killing innocent people? You know? I say this many times, and I tell this story too, about the Vietnamese people. You know, my wife, she has a restaurant, or she had a restaurant, it's closed now, in Hue. And it's on Pham Nhu Lao Street.
Phạm Ngũ Lão.
Pham Nhu Lao. I said, who's Pham Nhu Lao? He a general, she not know. So I look up Pham Nhu Lao. Pham Nhu Lao, a general in the 13th century, long time ago.
Right.
Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan defeat China, Europe, most of Asia. Genghis Khan never defeat Vietnam.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan come here 3 times.
3 times, yeah.
He never defeat Vietnam. Third time Genghis Khan come himself. He still not defeat Vietnam.
David joined the United States Marine Corps when he was 17 years old. 2 years later, in 1968, he served as a Marine in the war in Vietnam. David was stationed at Ngũ Hành Sơn area, also known as the Marble Mountains, Da Nang City. He returned to the US after 13 months of service and never wanted to visit Vietnam ever again. However, 38 years later, David decided to come back to Vietnam, not for another war, but to start a new life here.
I want to ask you about the time when you were back in the States and you were not welcomed by your fellow countrymen, as the experience you shared at the airport, LAX. So did you face any kind of PTSD during that time?
No, not during that time. During that time, I'm doing many alcohol and drugs.
Why? Why?
I don't know. I do a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, and I know some veterans have a problem, but I seem to be okay. And then in 1995, I find I can't drink no more. I do too many crazy things. I just cannot drink no more. So in 1995, I quit drinking. So then one time, I go get a job working on a bridge, construction. And I remember I do that for 3 years, and then it was July 1998. And I'm working on a bridge, and it's very hot. And I remember I'm bent down, and I'm working, and I stand up, and I say, it's July 1998. 30 years ago, I go to Vietnam. And this feeling of sadness, remorse, shame, guilt, all come on me. I don't believe it. And so I think, well, I come home in August of 1969. So maybe August of 1999, I feel better because I come home.
Right.
So August 1999, come and go. And I still feel remorse. I feel very bad. I find out later that PTSD, sometimes it come on anniversaries. Or if you get sick, or if your wife gets sick, or if somebody gets sick or dies, that's when the PTSD comes.
Right.
And it's very difficult. And then in 2007, a friend of mine, he in Vietnam too, but we not together. He's just in Vietnam in Air Force. He's a friend of mine in Florida. And he's a wealthy man. He's a very successful man. So he asked me if I want to go back to Vietnam. And I said, I don't know. He said, let's go back. I said, I can't, I have no money. He said, I'd lend you the money. I said, okay. So we make a trip. And he, internet man, so he'd do all the trip. He'd make all the trip.
All of the logistics. And
all the logistics.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's very nice because then he paid for it and I pay him back, over time. So we're in the airplane and we in all these nice airports. I think we go to Japan, we in a nice airport in LAX and nice airport in Japan,
Yeah.
And then we land in Ho Chi Minh, and it's a nice airport and everything air conditioned. And I think, oh, it's okay, And then at Ho Chi Minh, you go through the final immigrations and then there's a hallway. You turn left and there's a hallway.
Yeah.
So I go through immigrations, I'm fine. I turn left, I look outside. All of a sudden, I see the Vietnamese women in the conical hats.
Oh.
All of a sudden, the humidity hit me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's a smell. There is a smell about Vietnam. This smell hit me. And I look and I say, I cannot do this. I'm not do it. I turn around. I'm leaving. I don't care. I can't go back. But my friend, he just keep walking. So for some reason, I follow my friend.
Yeah.
I follow him out.
Yeah.
And his name is Tom. And so we get out there and there's a driver, Tom, he has a sign, Tom Unsworth. So he takes us out to the Mercedes limousine. He opens the door for me, gives me a cold bottle of water. I say, oh, well, maybe not too bad this time.
Yeah.
38 years after leaving the battlefield, David Clark returned to Vietnam in 2017 with a friend. The return made David feel stressed and anxious, but those feelings soon faded. 3 days into his trip, he visited the Marbles Mountain in Da Nang to visit his former battlefield. In 2011, he returned to Vietnam again and only planned to spend 1 week here, but he stayed for a year. In 2013, he came back to Vietnam and decided to spend the rest of his life in Da Nang, where he met Nguyễn Thị Thanh Hương, or Ushi, the love of his life. David formerly came to Vietnam to wage war, but now he chooses to live in Vietnam because he wants to spend peaceful moments with his wife and enjoy a warm, sympathetic, and love-filled life.
I like to bring you here because I feel more peace.
Now no more war.
No more war.
Yeah.
Xin chào.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
What is your name?
My name is Vic.
Me? How old are you?
I'm 11.
Okay. It's the way all the young people smile at me and they just want to talk to me. The children, they're always very happy. And that makes me happy.
I want to ask a question about your decision to visit the Marble Mountain after that trip back to Vietnam in 2007, and the mountains that shielded your military camp from Vietnamese army during your service then. And for the first time in your life, you climbed up to the peak of the mountain that very moment. How did you feel?
I see the mountain all the time, but no, we can't go up there. No, I always want to go up that mountain, but cannot.
Okay.
Not dangerous, too dangerous. Many men try to go up there and they not make it back.
Okay. So you didn't climb up to the peak?
In 2007, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And one thing I want to do, I want to climb the mountain, because I always want to climb that mountain, And so in 2007, yes, I climbed the mountain. And then I get to the top of the mountain, and that's when I look around, and no tracers, no guns, no helicopters, no bombs, just peace. Everything at peace. And so, for the first time in a long time, since 1969, I feel at peace in Vietnam. I feel at peace with Vietnam. I feel at peace.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's all we can ask for, is to be at peace.
Yeah.
If we're at peace with ourselves, we have everything. That's everything.
Yeah.
Well, also I have a beautiful wife, and I have beautiful children and beautiful grandchildren. But if I not have peace here in my heart, then I can't share peace with my wife or my children or my grandchildren.
Yeah.
So that's why the peace for me.
So is it true that you feel fulfilled when you are in Vietnam? Like your heart is filled with love and peace, not like the remorse or the PTSD or the sorrow that you, and you could leave behind the past that you don't like to talk about? Do you feel like...
I'd much rather talk about what we do for the victims of Agent Orange and how we help them with unexploded ordnance, you know? And another little project that I start is we find out that the children in the frontier area that live 3, 4, 5, 6 kilometers from school and don't have no bicycle, not go to school. So we, since 2014, I think we give nearly 2,000 bicycles away to frontier children.
Yeah.
You know, this is good. Okay, this makes me feel good.
After that first trip in 2007 and in 2011, right, you came back to Da Nang to organize a charity tour.
Well, not actually 2011. It was, you know, I come in 2007 for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I'm only in Da Nang for 3 days.
Okay.
I almost stay. I almost tell my friend, you have to go. I want to stay here, but I can't do it. So then in 2011, I come back by myself.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay in Da Nang for 3 weeks. I stay here for 1 year. And then I go home for a few months. And then I come back in 2013.
Okay.
I'm going to stay 1 year. I not leave yet. I'm still here.
Okay.
So and then in 2013 I meet my wife. Okay, I'm on tour. I do tours.
Yeah.
Okay, and I meet my wife at her restaurant in Way. I'm in tour. All right. She very active with Veterans for Peace at her restaurant.
Okay.
So then she introduced me to Chuck Searcy. Then I start working with the Agent Orange. So really, my wife put me to where I do this. And then
So what's your role at Veteran for Peace?
I am the Secretary Treasurer. I take care of all the money.
Are you busy, and is that a very
Well,
challenging
you
task?
know, we be a little slow for the last 2 years because of the pandemic. Okay, usually the way that Veterans for Peace fundraise is we have a Veterans for Peace tour, and then we take the people and we take them and we show them Friendship Village in Hanoi. We show them a few other places in Hanoi. We go to Hearts Away. We go to Dava 3.
Okay.
We go to the hospital in Saigon. We go to Project Renew at Quantry. Okay. And then at the end of the tour, they know they all have to put in $1,000. They, you know, the tour very cheap, but at the end of the tour, they have to donate $1,000. And then they decide, well, I want my money to go Project Renew. I want mine to go to Dava 3. Okay, I want mine to go. So they decide where they want to put their money.
Right.
And then we donate the money. So, but not too busy here the last 2 years.
Yeah. Because of COVID.
Because of COVID, our last tour, 2019, we have a tour planned for 2020, but can't do it.
Okay.
So I think maybe, we hope, next March, we start our tours again, which is our main fundraiser.
Yeah.
That's how we generate most of our funds.
And you also helped raise funds for the victims of Agent Orange at Davao, and also the Renew project.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do these activities mean to you?
It's the children, you know. I just love the children, you know. They say a man never stands so tall as when he bends down to help a child.
Okay, I love that. Yeah.
And I do love helping the children. They're just, the Vietnamese children, they're just so beautiful, and they want to learn, you know. And they're just very beautiful. I love the children.
So that's how you felt when you came and visit the children at Davao 3? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I always try to help the children of Davao 3. You know? And sometimes just me go there, I think, make them feel better. They seem happy when I go there. You know?
Yeah.
That makes me happy. They seem happy, so it makes me happy.
Yeah. Talk Vietnam followed David Clark and his friends on a visit to the Đà Nẵng Center supporting for Agent Orange victims. Though it took nearly an hour to reach the center by motorbike, the group were happy as they had the chance to visit old friends. This activity is also an annual occasion. Whenever David and his friends visit the center, they never forget to bring gifts and food for members and spend time playing with them. They also visit the education center where members learn how to sew and make flowers and incense. David, his wife, and his friends sent their words of encouragement, their best wishes, and warmest smiles from the bottom of their hearts.
Đối với ông David thì cũng là một người rất là thường xuyên đến với trung tâm. Thì mỗi lần ông đến thì đã đem lại cho các em rất là nhiều niềm vui. Bên cạnh cái sự hỗ trợ cá nhân của ông thì ông còn giới thiệu kết nối những người bạn của mình để đến tổ chức các hoạt động mình hỗ trợ những cái phần mà rất là thiết thực đối với cái hoạt động chăm sóc các em ở trung tâm.
The group is special because David is the only U.S. veteran. While his other friends are expats living in Đà Nẵng, his friends accidentally heard the story about David Clark and Agent Orange victims, and they wanted to do something to help.
I met David in my restaurant, and we started talking about what he's doing, you know, and I said, wow, that's amazing what you can do. He says, oh, we need more help. So when I met David, David was a big inspiration in my life because of what he was doing. He was here during the war, you know, and it was so amazing that he came back, you know, and I asked him, I says, why did you come back? He says, feel that I belong there, you know, I feel that I have to do something, you know. So I says, well, oh, can I be part of it, you know? And he says, sure. My feelings never change. When I come here, my heart is always hurts, you know. When I leave with a lot of ideas and things that I want to do, you know, for the kids, see the kids smile, and that makes me happy.
David said that in the future he would continue to call for support from his kind-hearted friends for the Đà Nẵng Center for Agent Orange victims. Their help could raise the hopes of unfortunate people and the happiness and support they need. So now I have a question about the healing process. You know, you dealt with PTSD, right? Drinking problems.
Drug problem?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then when you go to Vietnam, the healing process began, right? Tell me
Yes.
more about that.
You know, one of the more fascinating things that have happened, that happen to me regularly here in Vietnam, is, you know, when we have our tours, our Veterans for Peace tour, like maybe 1/3 are veterans, or 1/3 are, you know, either children or wives, and then 1/3 are anti-war activists. They protest. They never in the military. They only protest back in the U.S. When we go, and a lot of times we have veterans come see us, and they want to go back to their battle site. They want to go back to a certain place. And when I'm there, I'm at peace, because it's not what I remember. Okay. Well, when you take these veterans back to their place, you can feel the peace come over them. You can see the peace, and I feel the peace.
Okay.
But what is very strange for me is some of the anti-war activists that come here for the first time, they never been to Vietnam. They only protest during the war. When they come to Vietnam, they have that same feeling of peace. You can see the peace in them.
Yeah.
One time I have a man come here, Lester Holt. I don't know if you know Lester Holt.
No.
He's with NBC News. He's a
Okay.
big newsman.
Yeah.
NBC News
Okay.
every night. Tall, black man. Very well respected. He come to interview me in, I think, 2018 or 19, whenever Trump meet Kim,
Trump Kim, 2019.
2019.
That's
Okay.
what I think. Yeah.
I think, 2019, 2018, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So he wanted, his father, Lester Holt's father, served in Da Nang. So he wanted to meet some veterans in Da Nang. So he come and interview me, okay? So he asked me, what do you think about Donald Trump coming to meet Kim? And you know what I tell him? If leaders of the world want to talk about peace, Vietnam, the most peaceful place in the world.
Oh,
Vietnam is where all peace starts.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful, David.
Many thousands of U.S. veterans who've come back to Vietnam. It's always been an eye-opener for them.
Today, tôi nói tiếng Việt một chút. Em bé tôi. And all the people smile.
Even people here in Vietnam, they'll ask me, why you come back so much? You always come back. I says, I come back because I like to come back. I love the people here.
That is some heart-to-heart sharing of American veterans who fought in the Vietnam War. They were tired of taking part in a senseless war, traumatized and scared of returning to Vietnam. But since the end of the war, it is estimated that thousands of American veterans have returned to Vietnam. Some visited old battlefields, and some even returned multiple times and settled down in Vietnam to ease the pain and heal the wounds left by the war. That is why Veterans for Peace was founded. The organization plans many tours across Vietnam to fundraise for Agent Orange victims and relieve post-war consequences in Vietnam.
I have 2 children who are healthy, and a grandchild that's healthy. And it breaks my heart to see how much they suffer.
The United States left Vietnam in the early 70s, and it's almost 50 years. And all of us are trying to deal with our own legacy.
My plan is probably to keep arranging to come back every 5 or 6 months. I have to go home. Maybe it would take a year for me to come back, but I will come back.
So the healing started by your very first effort to contribute to the reconciliation, right, of the war between the two countries. Tell us more about that.
When I quit thinking about the problem disappeared. When I started thinking about the solution, that's when the healing is here. Not when I'm thinking about me or what happened to me, but what I can do for the solution. What can I do now? And to just try and help the Vietnamese people a little bit for what my country do to them gives me, I find peace there.
Now I want to ask you a question about how do you guys feel, especially the veteran, American veteran, when they go back to Vietnam and to, for example, visit the old battlefield. How do you think about the response of the Vietnamese people?
Okay, I'm going to answer your question in a couple of ways. First, I want to say this. A friend of mine, he lived in Vietnam. He's not a veteran, but he here for 25 years. He's with East Meets West. His name is Mark Conway. He leave in 2015 so his son can go to college in U.S. He with East Meets West for 25 years. He here in 1994 he came tonight.
Right.
He tell me one time, if American moved to Canada, takes you 2 years, you become part of the culture. If an American moves to Mexico, takes you 5 years to become part of the culture. If an American moves to Asia, it takes you 25 years to become part of the culture. And that's because it's all about the spirit world. We don't understand the spirit world.
Okay.
We not have we don't have the things that the Asian people have. So it's all about the spirit world. So it's only once you understand the Vietnamese culture, which I only hear for 11 years. So I have 14 more years to go.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I want to tell you a little story that I will always be a very dear part of me. I think it's 2016. We take a veteran to My Lai. And he, with Charlie Company, he part of the ones that kill everybody. And he go back to My Lai. We take him back to My Lai, and we look at the museum there. And he's looking around, and you can see he's very sad, but he's not saying nothing. And then we meet the survivor, a lady there. She probably in her 50s. Maybe she a teenager during the massacre, but she survived it. So he meet her, and he look at her, and he say, "I'm so sorry." You see, he almost cried. He said, "I'm so sorry." And she see how sad he feel. And the lady just touched him, but she said, "I put the past aside. I'm only worried about what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And I want you to do the same."
Wow, that's very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Returning to Vietnam and deciding to settle down here, David Clark constantly wants to contribute even the smallest things to the country through charitable work. Mr. and Mrs. Clark and his friends have donated more than 1,000 bikes to disadvantaged children in central Vietnam. When receiving new bikes, the smiles on children's faces always make Mr. and Mrs. Clark feel blissful and warm. Because through this act of kindness, they partially reduce difficulties that the children face on their way to school.
So let's talk about your life here with your wife Ushi in Vietnam. How would you describe your life here in Vietnam at the moment?
You know, there used to be an old TV show in the U.S. a long time ago maybe in the 50s. It'd say the life of Riley. The life of Riley, you just have a good life. You have a good family, you know, you happy, have a good job.
Yeah.
So that's me. I live the life of Riley. I have it far better than I deserve. I have a beautiful wife. I live in a beautiful home. I'm not able to afford this home in U.S. I live very near the beach. I walk to the beach.
Yeah.
Mountains, 3 or 4 minutes away. A beautiful river. So that's no, and my wife is very beautiful and she's very loving and she takes very good care of me. Very good care of me. She makes me lazy. She do too much for me.
So what's your biggest wish now?
My biggest wish is that I pray that the Iraqi veteran, the American Iraqi veteran that fought in the American war in Iraq, and the Afghanistani veteran, I hope that in 50 years they can go back to Iraq or they can go back to Afghanistan and they can find the same peace that I find 50 years later in Vietnam.
Thank you so much for your time with us, and we wish you all the best. I hope that you would enjoy your time here in Vietnam and continue your work with Veteran for Peace.
Thank you, Lynn, and it's been such a pleasure for having you and Talk Vietnam crew have the day here. It's been really a great experience for us. Thank you.
And that is for this edition of Talk Vietnam from Da Nang with David Clark. I hope that you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.
When I leave here in 1969, I never want to come back. Never. Never, never.
Bác ấy có một cái tấm lòng thì cái sự quan tâm dành cho mọi người, bác lại có những cái mối muốn là có một cái kết nối để đem những cái điều hàn gắn với người Việt Nam.
Ông làm cái chỉ được với tốt cho trẻ em Việt Nam và cho đất nước Việt Nam, thấy họ nhẹ lắm. 6 người em của ông là đều nói một câu thôi. Chưa bao giờ tôi thấy anh của tôi mà vui vẻ như bây giờ.
Tôi 50 người Mỹ, 50 người Việt Nam. I like to watch the people. It's always very nice, very peaceful. The more I learn about the Vietnamese people, the more I love them. I find peace here.